Cania, home of the ice devils. A place so cold, even other devils avoid it, and no other creatures make their home here. This ruthless tundra is ruled by Mephistopheles, where he incessantly plots to overthrow Asmodeus and uncover ancient arcane secrets. His most recent pet project is the creation and study of Hellfire, a fire magic that can hurt even devils. This icy, mountainous landscape is dotted with libraries, research facilities, and laboratories where his many servants conduct experiments and are soon forgotten about by their Archduke as he moves on to new areas of study to obsess over. Let's discuss the descriptions of this layer in each edition. In first edition, Cania was actually called Cana with the I before the N as opposed to after the N. This is because in Dante's Inferno, the final circle of hell is a vast frozen lake, and it's broken up into 4 rounds, the first round being Cana, named after Cain from the Bible. I'm not 100% sure why they changed it to Cania. My guess is that it just kind of rolls off the tongue better. In first edition, it's described as a vast layer mainly consisting of ice-covered boulders and mountains, ruins of stone, and sprawling glaciers. It is always minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit, much colder than Stygia, and most warm-blooded creatures without heat will die in a few hours. In addition to the hostile weather, food and combustibles for making fire are nowhere to be found here on the 8th layer of hell, so these supplies must be brought in from elsewhere if a visitor wants a chance to survive. Even then, any fire will attract the attention of ice devils who will attack with no hesitation. If far from Nargus, a great glacier from which the Duke Bifrons rules from, an ice devil is not likely to inform Mephistopheles or his staff of the existence of intruders unless there is a chance that other devils have seen them too and are likely to report them. If a party should escape a lone ice devil, the latter will not warn others of their presence, but will itself remain alert for signs of them. There are many hidden valleys, deep crevasses, snowbanks, and ice caves in this layer. The rocky spires and pits of the outermost fringes of Cania are hot regions crisscrossed by colder, steaming, slimy waters which give way to marshes of icy ooze that rise into the frozen mountains of the plain's interior. These outer regions are where the pit fiends and Malebranche dwell. In 2nd edition, the Plains of Law box set describes it as being as cold as the para-elemental plane of ice, which, according to the Planescape campaign setting box set, deals 1d6 frost damage each round, a round being 1 minute, unless the air around them is heated. However, according to Guide to Hell, also from 2nd edition, anyone without warm clothing will freeze to death in 1d4 minutes. Travelers with warm clothing but no magical protection will freeze to death in 1d20 hours. Mountains and glaciers fiercely grind away at each other, and avalanches are common. The layer is also dotted with the frozen, preserved corpses of the many visitors that froze to death traveling this extremely hostile environment. The only path to Nessus, the 9th layer of hell, lies in Cania. It is at the bottom of a deep glacial pit guarded by 9,999 Gelugons, also known as ice devils. After the guards, you then must swim 1,001 fathoms through freezing, slushy water. At the bottom of this icy lake is a portal of ice and corrupted silver, which leads to the fortress Malshim in Nessus. In 3rd edition, Cania is still described as being extremely cold, much more so than Stygia, and filled with icy mountains, snowstorms, deep crevasses, and frozen corpses. Any visitor without immunity to cold takes 10d6 cold damage per minute of exposure to Cania. The only exception to this is inside Mephistar, or if you have a letter of safe passage written by Mephistopheles or one of his top lieutenants. This only works on the weather of Cania and not any other source of cold damage. In 4th edition, it also describes it as being snow-covered and so cold that it kills most mortals. However, it adds the lore that it used to be a realm of great cities until Asmodeus' rebellion, and now these cities are frozen under the icy depths of the 8th layer of hell. Angels that refused to leave when Bathion was transformed into Beator were condemned to torment and now linger as powerful undead that even devils are scared of approaching. In 5th edition, it is still a frozen wasteland, and even though 5th edition likes to nerf many powerful things, it is still described as being cold enough to kill most creatures in seconds. In 5th edition, Cania is one enormous laboratory. Mephistopheles likes having the tundra to conduct experiments in so that gouts of massive arcane energy don't destroy anything important. These research labs and libraries of immense arcane knowledge are scattered far apart to prevent one disaster from destroying the work at another facility. The research conducted here is geared toward the creation of new spells, new magic items, and other innovations for the infernal arsenal. These activities attract many spies, for even watching one of his servants at work can provide amazing insights. Now let's discuss the rulers. And by rulers, I mean ruler, because there's only one throughout all editions. Mephistopheles, the mighty lord of no mercy, or the Cold Lord. In 1st edition, he is described as one of the most careful and suspicious of the archdevils. In 2nd edition, Mephistopheles is also referred to as Baron Molocroth sometimes. Because he rules the layer closest to Nessus, and thus Asmodeus, he is extremely wary of others trying to overthrow him to get his position. If one of his servants rises too far, too fast in his ranks, they are considered a threat, and Mephistopheles ensures their downfall. Although this has kept him the ruler of Cania as long as anyone can remember, it has also robbed him of his ablest nobles, and thus his political and military schemes suffer. Despite his high-ranking position, he is still extremely jealous of everyone. Whenever Asmodeus rewards one of his servants, he wonders where his reward is, and he constantly laments that he is only a lord of hell and not ruling it. Martinet, the constable of Asmodeus, once said that if Mephistopheles were to become king of hell, it would take him less than an hour to start wondering why he wasn't also ruler of Mount Celestia. In 3rd edition, Mephistopheles is working on a new form of magic fire called Hellfire. Hellfire is fire created from the infernal energies of Beator itself, and thus bypasses any resistances or immunities to fire. Because of this new invention, the Ice Devils of Cania are afraid of Mephistopheles, and some plot to overthrow him. He gives the ability to wield Hellfire to cultists of his, and is using this alluring ability to sway even more people to his cult. Gifting this ability is using up more divine energy than he is gaining right now, and he has borrowed energy from Despater and Levistus. However, if this gamble pays off and his cult gains the popularity he wishes, his power will increase substantially. Mephistopheles projects an image of wit, intelligence, and charm when talking to others. Urbane and sophisticated, he comes off as a perfect gentleman and a most pleasant companion. In 4th edition, Mephistopheles chose Cania as his realm specifically because of the ancient knowledge that can be found in the frozen cities beneath the surface. Some say that the secret of Hellfire was discovered in one of these forgotten libraries. 4th edition also says that Ice Devils used to be a type of demon, but he trapped them in eternal servitude. Although they can serve other archdukes, they must obey him over any others, giving him a bit of insurance. In 5th edition, Mephistopheles wants to overthrow Asmodeus more than any other archduke, but knows he can't unless his adversary makes a grave mistake, so both wait to see what circumstances might give them the upper hand. Although Asmodeus knows the extent of Mephistopheles' treachery, he appears to trust his counsel when it is offered. Mephistopheles is constantly studying and conducting experiments that relate to arcane magic in the planes of existence. He is the most powerful wizard in the 9 hells, and hates anything that distracts him from his intellectual focus. He has been known to disintegrate minions for the smallest transgressions, and has executed devils because he suspected that they were about to do something that would annoy him. The types of mortals he tries to corrupt are skilled wizards and cunning sages, the types of people that can further his research. He has the lowest soul quotas, but the highest standards. He entices these characters with the allure of magical knowledge and power, and once they have signed their soul away, they go to Cania to serve. These people usually regret their decisions quickly, for they are usually ordered to decades of routine work and tedious study. Mephistopheles fills his contracts with cleverly worded clauses that allow him to annihilate any of his servants with a word. To further disincentivize running, he isolates his minions, allowing them only to congregate in small groups if it's necessary for their research, and he limits all but the most vital communication. Despite rebelling against Asmodeus like every other archduke during the Reckoning, he was the one who suffered the least, which makes people wonder if there is some ancient secret to his relationship with Asmodeus. although Hellfire is never mentioned in any of the Wizards of the Coast 5th edition books, it can be assumed that he is still working on it given all of his arcane research. And Hellfire is mentioned in the 5th edition book Minsk and Boo's Journal of Villainy. Technically, that's a DM's Guild product, and I don't think it is considered official canon, but it was written by someone who worked on the first 2 Baldur's Gate games, and currently works for a video game company owned by Wizards of the Coast, so take that as you will. Personally, I think Journal of Villainy is better than 99% of Wizards of the Coast source books for 5th edition, and I consider it canon myself. Vassals. Bifrons, also known as the Cold Duke. He is a mighty duke who commands 26 companies of ice devils. In 1st edition, he ruled the glaciers of Cania from his palace on the glacier Nargis. In 2nd edition, this palace was retconned to be Mephistar, the palace that Mephistopheles rules from. He is highly intelligent and is regarded as a clear-headed and dispassionate philosopher. He loves arguing and is convinced that the only practical society is one where the stronger rule the weaker, and believes that good promotes incompetence and mediocrity. He enjoys ice sculptures and collecting gems, and has a natural talent for navigation. He appears as a heavily muscled devil with gray skin, stubby horns, completely white slanted eyes, large nostrils and mouth, a humanoid torso, and a snake-like lower body. Huttigen, a Duke of Mephistopheles. In 1st edition, he is a pit fiend who commands 2 legions of pit fiends. In 3rd edition, he seems to have gotten a promotion because he is no longer a pit fiend but a unique devil. In 5th edition, he only commands 2 companies of pit fiends instead of 2 legions, so maybe he got a demotion, or the more likely explanation is that the 5th edition writers don't care much for fact-checking and consistent lore. Either way, Huttigen is one of the few devils who is 100% loyal to his Archduke. He has amassed enough power and influence to overthrow Mephistopheles, but his loyalty never wavers. Most of the pit fiends of Cania do not like Mephistopheles, and Huttigen is the only thing keeping them from revolting. He despises mortals, he has no cults of his own, and only the most learned Diabolus would know his name. Whenever Huttigen is summoned by a mortal, he negotiates as quickly as he can with little to no cost for the summoner. Once the deal is struck, he repays the interruption with death. After all, the contract didn't stipulate he wasn't allowed to kill you. He is not allowed to go to the material plane often, for his absence leaves Mephistopheles vulnerable. Other devils will spread the knowledge of how to summon Huttigen to the material plane in hopes of keeping him gone from Cania long enough to assail the Archduke. Balfagor, consort to Mephistopheles. She is charming and intelligent, inventing many strategies and devices used in the Hells. Asmodeus considers her one of his most valuable assets and tolerates Mephistopheles' machinations mainly because of her. She appears as a beautiful, curvaceous human female with cinnamon brown skin, ruby red eyes, a forked tail, and slim, delicate leathery wings. Her voice is musical but can crack like a whip when angered. Beal, Justiciar of Cania, dishing out impartial justice within Mephistar, the palace of Mephistopheles. Beal and Mephistopheles agree on what law should be in Cania, and the Archduke never overrules or influences his judgments. Beal appears as a tall, handsome, hollow-eyed man with ivory skin, except for his lower torso that is crimson, a curling beard and pencil-thin mustache, tiny horns, and a forked tail. He wears long black robes that hide a black rod of office, acting as a rod of smiting, and a dagger of venom. Adonides, Steward of Cania, responsible for the security and internal stability of the realm. He is cruel and high-handed, spending most of his time patrolling the lair with 16 ice devils, searching for and punishing intruders and those who misbehave or betray Mephistopheles. He mistrusts pit fiends and suspects every ice devil at Malebranche of being a spy for Beelzebul. He appears as a young, long-haired, darkly handsome man of giant stature. He has glittering black eyes, a fanged grin, a forked tail, a scarlet torso, and 2 small horns. Nexroth, a duke who leads 16 companies of Malebranche. He is selfish and loyal only to himself, and Mephistopheles is openly distrustful of him. He only keeps Nexroth in charge because he seems to be the most reliable of the pit fiends, and Mephistopheles does not want to have open conflict in Cania for fear that a rival archdevil would take advantage of the situation. In 1st edition, he is a pit fiend, but in 3rd edition he seems to have been promoted because he is a unique devil, however no description is given of his appearance. Barbas, Chamberlain of Mephistopheles, running the citadel of Mephistar and seeing to the security of the Archduke's treasure. He is proud, arrogant, and cruel. Totally unscrupulous and dishonest, he is kept in check by the constant scrutiny of Beal, Adonides, and Mephistopheles. He retained his position because of his brilliant deceptions, catching or misdirecting spies of other archdevils and deflecting the greed of those native to Cania. He appears as a 10-foot-tall, bearded man with large lips and an enormous belly. He wears large robes that conceal his forked tail, hooves, and crimson skin covered with thick, oily black hair. In addition to the dukes I just talked about, you also have the pit fiend nobles Silkard, Beckard, Goland, Svandor, and Boldemek. In 3rd edition, Boldemek helps Mephistopheles come up with new applications for his hellfire techniques. Inhabitants. The main devils that dwell here are the Gelugons, also known as ice devils. The cold is so inhospitable that even other devils avoided visiting this lair. No mention is made of any non-devils living here. Locations. Mephistar. In 1st edition, it is described as an iron citadel in the Ice Mountains in the heart of the lair where Mephistopheles rules. Because of Mephistopheles' suspicion and paranoia, the halls and chambers of Mephistar are patrolled and inhabited by devils in accordance with a strict schedule of activities. In 1st edition, there is a separate location with no name that was described as a palace carved out of the glacier Nargis, and it is where the Duke Bifrons ruled his domain from. In 2nd edition, they seem to have combined that location with Mephistar, because now it describes the citadel of Mephistar as being carved from ice on the glacier Nargis and is where Mephistopheles rules Cania from. In every edition except 1st edition, Mephistar is carved from ice and described as a white-blue jewel perched at the edge of a dizzying drop. Inside it, it is warm, and whenever the gate is opened, it releases huge clouds of steam as the warmth touches the freezing exterior air. 3rd edition adds some additional descriptions to Mephistar. It consists of icy skyscrapers housing the thousands of devils that live here. Least devils are crammed into tiny warrens, and greater devils that pioneer hellfire experimentation enjoy vast suites at the top. Whenever a devil is promoted, their living space is changed so that they may never have to live next to an inferior or superior. Mephistopheles' court is a palace made completely out of ice. The walls, the furniture, the decorations, etc. The constant hellfire experimentation has caused a thermal fog to linger around the city, and parts of the ice have been melting and deteriorating. In addition to Mephistopheles' court, you also have the Frost Garden, which is a collection of ice sculptures, the School of Hellfire, where people study and learn how to use hellfire magic, and the Toxic Zone, which is an area that has been permanently poisoned by toxic air that has drifted from the School of Hellfire due to all of the experimentation. Kintyre. In 2nd edition, Kintyre is a city of unknown origin and strange architecture, completely buried in ice. People have bored into the ice far enough to be able to see it and confirm its existence, but none have been able to dig deep enough to actually investigate the ruins. In 3rd edition, it is given a little bit more lore. It is located under the glacier Tchimox and is said to have been crushed in one fell swoop by Mephistopheles because its lord sided with one of his rivals. Although once inaccessible, now Mephistopheles has ordered the staff of the School of Hellfire to begin excavating Kintyre to discover its secrets. The reason for this sudden interest is because several texts have named Kintyre as possessing relics that would be invaluable to further Hellfire research. 4th edition adds the lore that a mighty artifact lies in the city, but ancient wards hide it from any that are loyal to Mephistopheles, so he is forced to send mortal prisoners to explore the ruins. Nebulat, a location that is only mentioned in 3rd edition. It is a settlement consisting of magically created shelves of ice that radiate from the side of the mountain Geleneth, where a population of displaced and discontented ice devils dwell. They despise hellfire magic, believing it to be uncanian, and are trying to create their own cold-based magic called the Plume, which sends particles of water into a victim's pores and then freezes them from the inside. That is the lore of Cania, the 8th layer of hell, throughout all 5 editions of Dungeons & Dragons. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to subscribe to see more D&D related content.